Welcome back for another great episode of Lock in Buffalo. I'm incredibly excited about today's guest. We have one of the most recognizable names in the Buffalo development scene, Mr. Nick Sinatra of Sinatra and Company Real Estate. He is a real estate investor, a real estate developer, a manager, and he's going to provide us with some incredible insight onto where the city of Buffalo is headed, as well as what's gotten her here today. So, Nick, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Michael, good to see you. How are you?
It's always a pleasure to see you. I really mean it. I've been incredibly excited and really looking forward to having you on the podcast. At Lock in Buffalo, when we started this, because we think there's such a discrepancy that a lot of people in the community have between really what's going on the ground level of a lot of the city's development and what they see in the headlines and what they read in the Buffalo News or in Business First. So we try to talk to people in the real estate community, whether it's investors, whether it's realtors or individuals like yourself that can wear several hats, to give us a more informed perspective on what's really happening in the Buffalo market. So, why don't you start off? Most people probably read about you and have a pretty good idea of who you are, but maybe give everybody a kind of the 30,000 foot view of Nick Sinatra and how he got here.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Or
This is great. Appreciate you doing the show. I agree with you. I think it's important to have the perspective that you do on the show and the guests you have on the show. In the day of the new age media, it's critically important that you have the voices be heard directly from those that are making the news versus through the funnel of certain Buffalo news, but other media outlets there that don't necessarily tell the story the way it is, more or less the way they want you to hear it, right? So this is great. In terms of my background, I'll share a little bit about it. Born and raised in Buffalo, love this community. When I grew up certainly in the 90s, when I was sort of conscious enough to see what's going around, it was a tough time in this community. And every other month you would pick up the paper, and because back then all you had was the paper or channel 2 and not a and the business would be closing and they'd be leaving, and it was sort of became a regular theme, and it became almost expected, right? And so it always kind of stuck with me that was something that bothered me. And so when I graduated business school in 2010, I decided I wanted to start a company in the real estate space and wanted to do it here in Buffalo. And it wasn't, this is 2010, the great financial crisis.
right?
So you can imagine when I was pitching people to invest in Buffalo at that point in time, the reaction I got out of folks. And so most of them ended up laughing or asking me to hit the door,
Sure.
to let the door hit you in the behind and the way out type of thing. But I was able to convince some folks to get excited about Buffalo, get excited about the company that I was putting together and invest. And we did. We invested tens of millions of dollars, certainly of equity. But if you were to add the debt that we've invested, it's over $100 million and growing. Once we complete the Heritage Point project, it'll probably be over $200 million of money investment period. It's in the city of Buffalo, let
Yeah.
alone something we know in the suburbs. So, so we're 16 years in business now. We have just about 100 employees in here in Buffalo and down in Florida. So we've created a number of jobs over time that we're proud of. We have a lot of folks that have been with us for 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years. So we're really excited about the community that we have within our own team, right? So the people here in Buffalo are great, which is why we all love Buffalo. But even within my team, that's what makes the people that our company so great, is we have a tremendous group of employees and team leaders, and they're mostly based here in Buffalo, and they're phenomenal human beings and phenomenally community minded, and
Right.
they do a great job. And it's an edge that we have as a company.
there's no question people are built a little bit differently here in Buffalo and in Western New York. So from what you've said, it sounds like you really had obviously a passion to come back to Buffalo, to plant your flag here in Buffalo, and it more so from like an altruistic perspective. But did the market conditions get you excited about this market or about the potential for Buffalo, other than just wanting to be more civic minded? Or did you think from a real estate developers and investors perspective, there were things kind of rumbling under the surface that show there could be some potential?
Yeah, that's excellent. You have to really go back in time, right? You have to
Yeah,
put our 2010 lens on.
right.
And from 2010 to 2020, there were some really exciting things that happened in Buffalo, Western New York, right? And so um, I saw that when I was in business school, and even before that, I was in politics and government. I actually worked for Governor Pataki when he was governor early in my career, and I worked for Empire State Development. So I had a pulse of what was going on economic development wise back in those days. So I was kind of kept an eye on it, and as I was thinking about what I wanted to do post business school in a really weird time, it's great financial crisis and what was kind of happening afterwards. Uh, I said to myself, there's some interesting things happening here in Buffalo that I want to be a part of, and I feel like there's some momentum here, and there was, especially in the early years, right? There was a lot of sense of community, and it's sort of like we were rebuilding along with the rest of the country in terms of what was happening. And there was this push to move back to Buffalo.
Hmm.
And we saw the brain drain forever that we were all used to growing up. It was actually stopped, right? And I think up until a few years ago, there actually was a population growth
Right.
for a while there, which is really exciting to see. But the bigger piece of it was that this community wasn't losing a lot of the talent that it has, right? So great people here, great um, community with great schools and universities, and uh, people come up from all over the state, all over the region to come to our schools, and then they leave. And the people that are here, or they used to leave, and then people that were here but get saved. So that stopped, or at least it moderated quite a bit during that decade between 2010 and 2020. And so, what did that mean? So it meant that people were starting companies here. People were wanting to live in the city. There was a real movement of people from the suburbs into the city, or where they were moving back or graduating university or grad school. They were actually they were living in the city,
Yeah.
right? And there was a groundswell there around that. It was really exciting. And so we obviously uh, leaned into that from an investment standpoint. And it's all created around jobs, right? So what was driving that, right? So the medical campus obviously was number one, right? That middle campus consolidation that happened, and all the different employment that has happened, and still frankly is happening around that. That's the real even today. And we talk about this a little bit later, like what's going on today. There's still a lot of energy and momentum around what's going on with the campus.
Yeah.
And so meds and eds are still very strong in
Mhm.
Buffalo and the Western New York region, but that was the early innings of it, and the formation had just happened, and there was still a lot of, that was before the medical school was finished construction down there, and the children's hospital was just in the infancy and planning stages at that point. So there was still a lot to happen and a lot of employment to be had down there, and that was a big driver of it. And then obviously, all the success of 43 North and I mean, when I moved back here in 2010, there was no ecosystem for startups or tech, right?
Right.
And a bunch of civic-minded leaders in the community got together and said, "Look, we have to do something about that." So they worked with Governor Cuomo's office to, really work on this 43 North, and it's been enormously successful for the community, and great jobs were created a lot of it. It's also just the confidence that came with it, right? And then you had the Buffalo Billion, right,
Right.
from Governor Cuomo. People forget about that, but if you remember, Carl Palladino ran against him in 2010, and he defeated Cuomo handily up north here, or I should
Mhm.
say in Western New York.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as a direct result of that, Governor Cuomo wanted to buy over. West
100%.
York.
I thanked
voters.
Carl a number
Right?
of times for the
Yes, exactly.
exactly
People
that.
forget about that.
Yeah.
When they criticize Carl nowadays, which seems to be, everybody wants to do it nowadays. They forget about all the great things Carl has done.
Absolutely.
Including that. So there are some real drivers, right? I know a lot of that Buffalo billion went to go build a Tesla factory, which again was criticized for forever. And now I think people would say, look, that was a success.
Sure.
That Tesla factory here. And again, a lot of it's about confidence and momentum, right? Because that encourages capital to stay here.
Exactly.
It encourages capital to want to be here. It encourages the lenders to want to lend, not just the developers, but just the startups and other folks. So that was all kind of happening in that time period, and it was the first time it had happened in decades in Western New York. And it stopped. COVID stopped all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. And now we're 6 years from that, and it doesn't feel like any of that momentum's picked back up.
It definitely does. I mean, you could go into really any pocket of the city and you don't feel that exuberance that was there pre-COVID, with maybe the exception of Canalside. I mean, you see a lot of activity obviously going on in Canalside. I've been spending a lot of time down there just to kind of get a vibe of that area. And you do see, as of recently, some of the headlines stating that there is, be it very small numbers, an increase in people living in that part of the city. And then obviously, you've created or continue to ride some of that momentum with the Heritage Point project. Looking back at COVID, post COVID, and your passion for wanting to continue that momentum in the city of Buffalo, how do you feel about that project? Do you have regrets about getting into it, or are you feeling the positive momentum starting to come back now?
Well, ultimately, that project's going to be successful.
Yeah.
When we originally won the RFP for that project, cost was somewhere around $27 million to build it. It is now upwards of $50 million. When it's completed, probably over $50 million. So that's painful because the rents haven't have gone up in a corresponding way. Right now, obviously, rents have gone up in the last 6+ years. Here, as they've gone up everywhere, but not in that same proportionality. So ultimately, the project needed some additional financial help, which we were able to secure from the state and from the Bagula family office. And it's just going to be a phenomenal project when it's done. So it's going to be the anchor that it was always intended to be down the Canalside, as it relates to creating vitality, 24 hours space there, where you have obviously the entertainment with the Key Center and all the sports and other concerts and really fun things that happen there.
Yeah.
And then you have Harbor Center, right? People forget about the Harbor Center. I mean, that's a huge driver now.
Yeah.
Those are two of the largest amateur hockey rinks in their country.
Yeah.
And so there's all this activity and all these people that come from outside of our community in Canada into the community to be around those tournaments, hockey tournaments. And so there's a lot of momentum there, and obviously there's a couple of other developments that are happening down there as well, in addition to ours. But
Right.
we're going to be the first to finish, and we're going to be prominently market rate, and we're going to have a lot of first floor retail, which could be really exciting to capture some of the folks that are down there in terms of the vendors and retail and restaurants. And I was watching the Sabres run, and it was really exciting to see all those people on the Canalside. And I just can't see myself. I cannot wait until we're open with that building, because our first floor tenants will be there to cater to that type of momentum, right? Whether it's restaurants or whoever we end up landing down there.
Yeah.
There'll be 20,000 people outside for a game. We'll be going in there and frequenting those establishments, and that'll be really, really strong. And
Sure.
excited, look forward to it. The Sabres, I think, are going to have a run now for the next few years, hopefully.
Yeah.
Longer. Okay, so I think that's going to be really exciting energy for Canalside.
It's
Sports teams winning really does matter for Canalside,
without question.
and it's gonna help Canalside at a time where it needs it.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it. You going down there for the Sabres games, and all of the energy that brings as of late has been incredible. You've seen it in a lot of the proprietors' energy and the events that they're hosting, and trying to capture that activity into their establishments by kind of upping their games. It's the high tide that raises all ships. But with that said, and one of the statements that you made about market rate, there's a lot of conversation in Canalside right now around market rate, around affordable housing. And I think a lot of people see those in the headlines or read those in the articles, and I don't think they really truly understand what that means. Like, you see affordable housing in this Pembrose project, 40 to 80% of average median income. What is that? How does that really affect the rents?
So yeah, there's two projects that are being that were awarded that are going to be predominantly affordable in nature. It's that project, which is the North Block, which we referenced, that's directly across the canal from our project, and then there's the Marine Drive Apartments, right? And another developer won the RFP there, and with a primarily affordable mixed use, mixed income type of project. And so there's a lot of folks that have differing opinions on all that. And look, I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing. We built it in conjunction with a few nonprofits over time, and think this community needs a lot more of it. But you know what, I think down at Canalside, that the concept there is to create people to come in and live that are going to be working down there and consuming all that is offered down there, right? Including and predominantly sports and entertainment down there, right? And so I think that the mix that is proposed between those two developers is going to be way too heavily weighted on affordable, and is not going to create what was fully intended on the front end of these RFPs, right? So when I pre-COVID responded to our RFP for South Block, it was they wanted all market rate. And then over time, there was a push towards more affordable. We agreed to do 10% affordable in our structure in terms of the apartments. And then the North Block was, the RFP came out, and there was some affordability that was put into that was part of a request of the community, the development community, to put in their to look at doing some sort of affordable component. But primarily it was meant to be more market rate than affordable. And the mix now that Penrose is putting forth is predominantly affordable and with a lower income threshold than originally contemplated. So that's I know some business and civic leaders have recently brought that up, and it's going to be a point of contention, right? Because I don't necessarily know if that's the right mix down there. And they're trying to create a real hub catalyst for growth, and so I think it's going to be continued to be debated. I think the faster that we can get our project done and show the successes of having predominantly market rate units with the retail and other commercial space there, I think that'll also help lay the groundwork for what hopefully could be model for others and at least the Canalside community.
Are there other models in other cities? Like I know in Chicago and St. Louis, affordable housing initiatives have been heavily targeted. Have you gone through any of that data to see how it's impacted values?
I haven't. Some of the folks in the debate have.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be part of the debate moving forward. It's, look, I think you want to have the right mix of people. Right?
Sure.
And you don't want to be in a situation where you're excluding people, but at the same time, you want to have economic success.
Yeah.
Right? And in order to do so, you need to have people down there spending money, and people down there who are working down there, right? The concept is a little more play area down
Sure.
there, right? And so I think that's critically important to all the businesses down there. And certainly my view, the the best success would be to have as much market rate apartments down there as possible.
Right.
And create some sort of threshold of affordable that makes sense for the region and for that specific Canalside area, right? So let's see where it lands. I'll focus on our project
Yeah.
and delivering our project and making sure that that is successful.
Mhm.
And we'll lead by example there, and I think you'll see what that does for the community by having a 90-10 split with market rate.
Yeah.
And affordability.
And the other projects are contemplating what, like a 25-75 split now,
Yeah,
from what I've read recently.
it's almost the other way around.
Yeah.
It's almost 180 degrees opposite of what we're doing, and it's different from where the RFPs were. I think
Mhm.
that's the other component of it, is that these RFPs were sent out there and people responded to them. I was on our project. We had financial difficulties, as everybody knows, because it was so widely reported
Sure.
in the press. And so when I went to go look for relief,
Mhm.
everybody in the decision-making tree there kept pointing back to the RFP and what we signed up for,
And held you to
and
that.
held us to it. And so we wanted a value engineer when costs went up.
Mhm.
That was denied. Which as a market rate developer, you know, costs go up, you look for ways to save. And that was the first thing we tried to do. And that there was no, um, the design standards had to be adhered to no matter what the cost. Right. And so that was the response I had. And then the other big piece of it is the mix of program, right, between commercial and retail and apartments. There was not a whole lot of flexibility there either, which could have helped us again reduce the costs. And so, we ultimately made the request then for more financial assistance from the state. That was initially denied because there was no flexibility, and then ultimately the state came back around to work with us, and we got a deal inked, and projects moving along very nicely and expected to be done next summer. But we were held to a standard, and I think others should be held to such standard.
Well, to that point, I mean, from at the filming date where we're at the 15th of June today, it was a last week, Terry Connors and several other developers and business owners and with the stake in the downtown area pretty publicly came out against this Penrose vacillation. And, we could speculate on why it was so acquiesced to, but would you weigh in on, I noticed that you didn't participate in that document. So it's seemingly that you're on board with the criticism of.
Well, I just, we're focused on our project.
Sure.
Right. But I think there were some really great points raised in that letter.
Yeah.
And the other one that I didn't even mention yet, but it's sort of at the top of the list of the problems is the cost.
Yeah.
Right. So that project, that particular developer is proposing is predominantly financed through state dollars, right, through low-income tax credits. Versus our project is primarily financed through private dollars,
Mhm.
with a economic development package that we got from the state. So it's a little bit different, but the cost of their project is almost double on a per unit basis for what we are paying. And I'm telling you, our project it'll be the most expensive project that we've done on a per unit basis,
Mhm.
right? Because of these design standards that we have to adhere to, and because of the cost of competing with stadium
Yeah.
labor right now, right? That was a big problem with remobilizing the site, is we're competing with the largest development project ever in upstate New York, which is the stadium,
Yeah.
and trying to get contractors excited to come back to our site.
Mhm.
There wasn't a whole lot of room to give on pricing to do that. So even with that all being said, our costs are high, but they're nothing in comparison to what's being proposed over at the other site. And so that to me is a head scratcher, right? So you look at, okay, you're predominantly building affordable housing and you're doing so at twice the cost of somebody who's doing market rate housing. So, these residents are going to be paying less in rent, and they get twice as much of cost. There's a ton of subsidy from the state versus what we're doing. So I think
Sure.
that's part of what would be brought to attention in this letter to say, well,
Yeah.
that makes sense. How is that the right thing for New York State taxpayers? So,
And in a time where we're debating, the tax base and
right,
having to do substantial increases in taxes in the city of Buffalo, putting that predominantly on the shoulders of the tax-paying residents of the city of Buffalo, that doesn't really jive, I guess, with that. I mean, I would think that the administration, both at the state level as well as the city level, would be trying to get a little bit more creative on ways in which they can generate tax dollars.
right.
It doesn't seem like that is the best means of going about that.
Yeah, so we'll see where it lands, but I think there's some really great points that were brought up that should be debated, and ultimately, people need to make some decisions based on what's in the best interests of the community.
Sure.
Um, and the taxpayers, as well as, the overall development landscape here in downtown Buffalo, and certainly Canalside.
Yeah.
And the stakeholders that are down there. I mean, the stakeholders that were down there were very vocal when we had to stop the project.
Yeah.
And I hope those the same stakeholders get vocal here in this discussion, because we're kind of setting the pace here for what happens down there for the next 50 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's do it right.
100%. And it's nice to hear somebody like yourself actually looking at it from that perspective and playing the long game versus just trying to take advantage of what's going on today. Actually looking at the bigger picture of the city and the future residents of the downtown area. So
and I think it's easy to kind of politicize and say, oh well, you're against affordable housing, or folks in this letter are against affordable housing. No, I don't think that's what they're saying at all. I think it's got to think about what was the RFP, what's the right mix, what's the right subsidy from taxpayers and state dollars, et cetera. Because we've done tremendous amount of affordable housing, and I want to do more of it. I think it's a huge need for it. I think it's great for the community. It's great for Western New York. It's great for the city of Buffalo, but it has to be done in the right way.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we're talking about.
Well, let's peel the onion back another layer, and I'd just like to get your opinion on this because it's something that I'm pretty consistently hearing from the real estate community here in Western New York in general, is this lack of inventory. So when you talk housing units, in the city of Buffalo in particular, we're looking at somewhere in the ballpark of 130,000 housing units for a population of somewhere in the 260, 270,000. The city of Buffalo is sitting on 6,000 to 7,000 vacant lots. There's in total like 15,000 vacant lots. So what do you think in your thought process could be done here to start expediting the housing shortage solution?
Well, the first thing is out of all of our control, which is interest rates, right?
Right.
If interest rates were to moderate, I think you would see a lot more activity from bigger developers, smaller developers, home builders, you name it. Just folks out there flipping homes, improving their homes, right? I mean, the fact that interest rates are high and have been high for a while is the biggest problem with the housing shortage, not just locally, but nationally, right? So that's
Right.
Unfortunately, there's not much that any of us can do to change that. Certainly, we can't. Even the local policymakers and statewide policymakers, that's an issue that the markets need to dictate. It's a lot of it's driven by geopolitical issues and monetary policy and federal regulations and all that stuff, right? So a lot of it's macroeconomic, and we don't have control over it. But man, that is the number one by a long shot problem.
Yeah.
Well, with housing shortage, right? Because we haven't had any inventory to build because costs of everything went up after COVID, and then you had the interest rates spiking faster than they had in almost 100 years.
Yeah.
I think since they were keeping track, right? That's how in terms of the speed by which the interest rates went up, right? So that was so shocking to the system,
Right.
that people just weren't building anything, and it was apartments as well as single family homes. And so that's the number one issue. The other issue, well, there's multiple issues, but um, the um, the other component would be creating a situation where people in the city of Buffalo are more welcoming to national home builders.
Hmm.
Right? Um, if you were to talk to some of the well-known names in the home building space that wanted to try to build in the city over the last decade, a lot of them weren't getting a whole lot of traction from the local community, right? And mainly the the political community, right? So uh, I don't know what that was all about, but you don't see in the city of Buffalo Ryan Homes building, or Colton Homes, or some of these folks that can really come in and do a larger development, right? And certainly there's pockets of the city of Buffalo where a national home builder that has the deep pockets to come in and just take a whole uh, area and build homes, right?
Right.
There's pockets all over the city.
It sure is.
There's pockets certainly in the east side of Buffalo. There's pockets north, south, and um, even if you look at, I have something that site on Hurdle Avenue, the old Kmart on Hurdle Avenue, would be a perfect site to
Absolutely.
homes.
And think about what that could do to the different population corridor centers of the city. So from the Elmwood Village to the Hurdle area, if you took those swaths of blight in between those areas and started to do some substantial redevelopment, get population growth in those areas, it significantly benefits all of those areas.
There's some great larger sites and infill sites, but larger sites over by Central Terminal.
Yeah.
I think would be great for a home builder to look at. There's actually some great infill locations in what I'll call Cold Springs, which is sort of the area north of the Meadow campus up to Canisius College,
Mm-hmm.
where this has traditionally been known as Cold Springs area. There's great infill pockets there for residential for sale product. So it's been a challenge, I think, for larger home builders to look at it. So that's always, I think that's a little bit more of an issue, I think, in the past administration. Let's see how this administration views working with those type of home builders. But in terms of the homes and the pieces of land the city of Buffalo has, there's some great pieces that they have, and I hope that they put a process out there for what I'll call medium-sized home builders and smaller home builders, or even people that are just looking to do some infill
Yeah.
to take advantage of it, because there's just tremendous location
Mm-hmm.
that in everywhere you look in the city of Buffalo. And a lot of it's infill, which is tough because the larger home builders wouldn't even look at the infill in the first place, because it doesn't make sense for them economically. But I think you have enough entrepreneurial folks that would really take a look at those and build the homes. I really truly believe if they were built, they would sell.
Yeah.
The next project that we're looking to pivot to once Sarah's point is finished is over on West Utica,
Mm-hmm.
part of the Old Children's Hospital project that
Sure.
we've been working off in pieces. The old parking lots that were there on Utica, we're going to be building some townhomes for sale there, and I think they'll probably be sold before we even finish building them.
I would think so.
It's, there's going to be so much demand for it, because the other piece of the demand story in the city of Buffalo is the housing stock is old.
Without question. I mean, you have 60% of the homes in the city of Buffalo are near 100 years old. Most of the housing stock was built pre 1960 or 1940, rather.
So people generally don't like to go in and buy a home, spend all this money fixing it up.
Right.
Obviously people do that, but 9 times out of 10 people give an opportunity to move into a brand new place,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to they could finance it that way versus having to buy an old place.
Yep.
It's that and have money in pocket to fix it up. Obviously that's a little bit different scenario. So when you do see new product get built in the city of Buffalo, albeit rare, it sells quickly.
Well, it's absolutely rare, unfortunately. But I got a front row seat to it in North Buffalo. with the Rachel Vincent Way project in Murano, and
Hugely successful.
hugely successful. And I mean, those lots were, they just finished the final lots this past spring, and I mean, when a home goes for sale on that street, it's days that it's pending. So it's clearly the demand is there, and it'd be exciting to see some more of that type of activity. And I agree with you. If we could create incentive and uh, an environment where some of the national home builders were welcomed into this community a little bit better. That's the oldest adage for Buffalo, is that it's this little cloistered community. We got to keep Buffalo a secret. We don't like to welcome in outsiders or nationals, but um, I, I don't think we're in a position to be uh, keeping Buffalo a secret much longer, because we are in dire need of the inventory, both on the renovation side, renovating older housing stock, but then in addition to that, doing something with all of the vacant lots and increasing the inventory available to younger people that really have a desire to live in the city of Buffalo. I came up in that area that you were talking about at the top of this conversation in 2008, 2010, when there was so much energy and people having such a strong desire to want to live in the city of Buffalo. And once they got out of that period of time where they were renting, there was such limited availability for a first time home purchase. And then unfortunately, a lot of people started going out further and further into the alternative options, into the suburbs. But I'm excited to see some solutions coming to fruition on that front.
I'll say, a couple other thoughts on this piece. It's really important. I'm sure your listeners are going to want to hear more on this topic. So, traditionally it's always been, the schools are a problem in the city of Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, the city of Buffalo schools are markedly improved from where they were in 2010 when I first moved back here. Say yes, Buffalo is is a large driver of why that is the case. But the school board is doing a better job. I just think generally in the charter schools, the confusion pad, right? So there's some great options both on the public school side and the private school side. So that shouldn't be as much of an issue as maybe it was, years ago when we were when we were growing up. And then I think the condoization process is obviously flawed here in New York State. So it takes 8 to 30 months to get a condo through here in New York State. And it's largely because it's done through the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
Which is this is not a fit, right? I mean, the Attorney General's office is working on other things that are more important to them, to their mission, than signing off on, condoization documents. So I think that reform could be really helpful. Again, it would have to be done at the state level, but I can tell you we're looking at coming out with a condo project. It's an apartment project that we did in the city of Buffalo, Phoenix Brewery project. We used historic tax credits to do it 10 years ago. And it's time now, I think, to look at potentially selling them off as individual units. And it'll be, I think, because of location of campus, an excellent, there'll be a lot of demand for it. The process was really difficult and clunky with the Attorney General's office on that. And I know it's just not the right fit for that. And I know there would be others that would come online in that regard, should that be an easier process, right? So that'll be something regulatory wise, even without the interest rates changing, that could potentially help, because there's a number of buildings that owners of those buildings could potentially say, okay, this is a good exit strategy for me, as opposed to selling it as an apartment building.
Right.
It's just condo and sell it to the marketplace. And and it also does something else too, where it puts more inventory on the market. Now it's not family homes, it's condos, but still I think there's a lot of demand for it, and still
there's a ton of demand
it
for
keeps
it.
people in the city, which we want, right? So I think, and you actually might see some people do condo conversions, right? Which has never really happened. I mean, this is more or less like conversions that were done for apartments, and then now we're selling them off as condos years later. I think if if the process were easier, you'd actually have some people look at some of these old dilapidated buildings or under service buildings or underutilized buildings and say, look, maybe I can convert that into condos like in, all the big cities in America.
Sure.
That's what happens a lot, right? It's because typically the cost to renovate a structure into condos is less than what you can sell the condos for, right? It's
Right.
basic economics, right? You got to, if somebody's gonna be motivated to make investment, you got to have a return. Historically, that hasn't been the case here in Western New York because the end sale price of a condo unit didn't justify all of the expense that had to go into it.
Right.
Right. And you can't use the same tax credits, like the historic tax credits don't work for condo conversions. This historic tax credits you have to hold on to for 5 years,
Right.
5 year hold period, right? So the numbers just don't work. So again, I feel like if their interest rates were better and the condo process, legal process were better, you'd see more condo conversions or at least condos that were sold in the marketplace, which would help
Yeah.
the demand piece of it. And then I also think that I would encourage the new Ryan administration to think creatively about how to market some of the land they have.
Mhm.
So the previous administration didn't do anything to encourage people to buy land off the city to build on as it relates to the single family side of things. So maybe the solution is hire some real estate agents to go in there and look at the whole situation. Maybe they take some and put them together and market them. Maybe
Right.
say, hey, look, this is a great development site for 12 townhomes. And maybe we're gonna sell that as a block to somebody that's gonna do 12 townhomes in this one little pocket that the city might own contiguous lots. Or hey, this is a really big piece of property that potentially could be great for 150 patio homes.
Right.
Let's package that and take that out to some of the larger home builders in the community and maybe even nationally, right? So I think there's a way to market these lots.
There absolutely are creative solutions out there. Like I had Alex and Will Severn from Severn Development on here, and they've done a lot of business in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and they own about 300 single family homes out there. They have a rent to own strategy. Really, they're doing great business, but they're doing really well by their tenants. And they got their hands on a tax program that the city of Cleveland did to incentivize new homes to be built. And they put a program into place where they did a 10-year substantial tax reduction to the owner of the single family home. So they were paying like $500 a year, for instance, for a $400,000 home. Now, obviously, that creates a really nice incentive for somebody to build and maintain that property, and it gets the wheels spinning on the entire process. Oh no, I see what you're doing. Where we're at.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll finish that thought and then we could pivot over to that. I think the point is, there are definitely creative solutions out there. I would love it if this administration started thinking that way. And I've all the hope and support and will encourage this administration every step of the way to get that point. I think they're doing some things right. I think they've taken maybe the easy way out on bridging this budget gap with this 19% tax levy increase. But I'm rooting for them. I'm hoping that they get a little bit more creative. But in any event, we're about to be at the top of the hour. We are doing the Wheel of Buffalo with Nick Sinatra. All right, so Nick, what is a nostalgic lie that everybody here in Buffalo likes to buy into?
Well, I can tell you a bunch of nostalgic lies on the golf course that a lot of folks in Buffalo probably can relate to. But I would say the biggest nostalgic lie is our confidence as a community, right? You hear people so negative sometimes say, "Oh, we just can't get anything right," and look at the sports teams, and they lose. You can't win a Super Bowl. You can't, until the Sabres won this year. The Sabres are doing it. It's just been this whole "woe is me" mentality, right? And obviously there's some truth to it, and there's been some good political leadership, and there's also been some poor political leadership over at least my lifetime, but ultimately we have a lot to offer as a community, and so much of it is our own confidence, right? And so when you're traveling around the country and you run into somebody who's from Buffalo, they wear it in their sleeve. What's really interesting is when you run into somebody who's not from Buffalo but knows somebody from Buffalo, like, man, you Buffalo people are crazy. You are so proud of your community, and we're more than just chicken wings and snow, right? And that same energy that we have with people outside our community, we got to have it inside our community, right? I feel like the people outside our community, we're always really excited to talk about how great we are, but then when we're back in the community and we're talking amongst ourselves, sometimes we get we get down on ourselves, and the nostalgic lie is, oh, yeah, we can't get out of our own way, right? Which isn't always the case. And so I always try to keep positive, and I encourage people to do the same, because it's a great community. We have a lot to offer, and we, like many communities, have had a lot of ups and downs, right? So we had a great 10-year run, 2010 to 2020. We're in a little bit of a rut right now. Doesn't mean that we can't have another great run again. We just got to have the confidence that we can do it, because it's always the private sector that leads these things. Right now, obviously, you got to have a little bit of cooperation from the political class, but really, it's the entrepreneurial private sector that really drives growth and has driven growth in Buffalo. It's created that, what we all know of today, what we know and love, and and I know that the Bills are going to win Super Bowl, so that's going to make a huge difference as well.
Well said. Well said, Nick. Well, I want to end with one question. Your point about the entrepreneurial spirit of the private sector. A lot of folks that subscribe and watch this podcast are young aspiring entrepreneurs, folks that are getting into the throes of their careers. So you're an investor. You work with a large number of investors. You're a developer. You've done a lot of adaptive reuse products that are incredibly complex. You're an employer, as you stated at the top, of 100, in excess of 100 employees. You're a father of 2 young kids. How do you manage all of that and decompartmentalize all of that?
Well, certainly the most important piece is being the father of 2 young kids, and you can imagine in my line of work, folks are always asking for a background. If you're doing an investor pitch, you're in a meeting, whatever, tell me a little bit about yourself. And up until I had children, it was always about me and my background. And now I always start the conversation and say, oh, well, I've got 2 beautiful children. Henry, who's almost 7, and my daughter, Mia, is almost 2. And that's the thing I'm proud of the most. And I love being a dad. I love the 2 of them. And obviously my tremendous wife, Courtney. So, family first, right? And that's always been the way for me and for my family. It's family first. And so that's hard to do, though, because obviously there's a lot of strains with business, and trying to make sure that you're balancing that end of it. It's not always easy. But my advice to entrepreneurs is to swim back. Gotta go get you sort of miss every shot you don't take, right? So you can't be careless about it, but you got to take some risks, take some chances. Fortunately for me, when I started, it was out of the great financial crisis, and there wasn't really a lot of alternatives. I mean, sort of like, there was nobody was hiring, everybody was getting fired back in those days. So being an entrepreneur was still a different situation, whereas now there's a whole different swath of entrepreneurial opportunities, right? With social media and AI and all kinds of um, opportunity out there. You just got to find the right opportunity, and if your intentions are right and you keep grounded on what's important, I think you sort of can manage it. And even through the thick of it all, um, it's possible.
Well, you heard it here. Nick Sinatra, on Lock In Buffalo. Nick, thank you so much
Thanks, Michael.
for taking the time.
Enjoyed it.
We hope you all learned a lot and continue to stay locked into Buffalo. So, man, thank you. That was great.